Time now for the nationally syndicated radio show, The World of Laurie Zoock. And now, here she is, the smart, the sexy, the savvy, divine Miss C.
And welcome to my world, the world of Laurie Zoock. Every week I've got a great lineup for you. And today we're going to start out with one of my oldest friends, Mary O'Connor. And we're going to talk about dating, which I think is really an interesting subject because for a lot of people like myself who have been divorced, or Mary who's been divorced also, dating can either be really great or really a nightmare. So, Mary, I want to welcome you to the show.
Thank you.
And let's start out with give me some stories of dating.
Oh, dating runs the gamut from you meet someone who's 100 pounds heavier and 10 years older than their photographs to people who are still married but left that part out.
So there's a lot of liars.
There's everything out there. There's people who are better looking than their pictures and people that look just like what they've posted. It varies. It's kind of fun in a way, but it can be very tiring because you'll go on these, I don't even want to call it a first date. It's more of a meet and greet.
Right.
And you sit down with the person and you say, oh, this is such a nice person, but I don't feel any connection. There's no rapport. And maybe 1 out of 10 times you'll meet somebody and say, hey, I really want to go on a second. I want to really see this guy again. Hopefully it's mutual.
Yeah, it's been interesting. When I was dating, I did try Match.com after I was divorced. Mm-hmm. And I went on a number of those meet and greets. And, yeah, you're right. It was interesting because a lot of people post photos that are so old that when you meet them, you're like, wow, is this even the same person?
Yeah.
And so you talk about the weight and things like that. I remember I dated a very nice-looking guy. Told me in the ad he was 45, and on the first date he said we would hit it off pretty good. He goes, well, I have to really let you know that I'm 50 and I'm sorry that I lied and said I was 45. And I'm thinking, you're confessing now?
Yeah.
But what are some of the experiences that you've had?
Well, I think there's a lot to be said for keeping active and not making your whole life revolve around finding a date or finding someone to be in a relationship with. That said, just keep out there and be true to yourself. You can't change. You'll see women that say, well, I really don't like sports, but if he's into it, I'll watch it. That's fine. That's compromise. But when you try and change who you are, that's another matter. Now, I think dating in different decades is also, there's like a woman in her 20s, early 30s is looking for something different than someone like me who's approaching 60. I'm looking for someone who's already established in their career. We probably already have our children and families. So that part of life is set. I want a different type of lifestyle than someone who is a bit younger. And people older than me are looking for something different as well. And I think it's important to know what you're looking for and what your lifestyle choices are. If you're a night person or a morning person, that sounds kind of trivial until you're with someone who wakes up at 3 a.m, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and you just barely fell asleep.
Right. Yeah. Listen, you're laughing. I have that with my significant other now. We're on different schedules. He's up at 5. I'm up at 8. He's in bed by 9. I'm still awake at night. So I'm the night owl, and he's the morning lark, so to speak. So I totally understand that. And we compromise when we make it work. But, I think a lot of – let me go back. One of the points you made is about being true to yourself and not necessarily relying on a man to fulfill you, so to speak. You have to really fulfill yourself, right? Right.
And a lot of women, when you first get divorced or, it's a huge economic downturn.
Oh, yeah.
And I think there's a natural hope that you'll find some guy that will bail you out,
Right.
And that isn't going to happen. We're not in the 50s anymore. Men are breadwinners, yes, but are they looking for a woman to support? No.
Yeah,
you need to find a way to stand on your own 2 feet, and that feeling of independence is attractive to men. They want to, we all want an adult. We don't want to be taking care of a child, no matter how old you are. It's important to be established, and it's not easy. The other thing I recommend to women is that they make other female friends that they can talk to, that they can relate to. Because, when you're coming out of a marriage, you probably don't have a lot of those friendships that you had maybe when you were younger. Reestablish yourself, find a hobby you enjoy, do some volunteer work. There's a lot of life out there when you have the freedom of choice.
Right. I'm going to agree with you on that also. And, just your thoughts on online dating versus meeting people in other ways. Do you think that in the online dating, people tend to lie more?
Best option? No, I think people a person that's going to deceive you is going to deceive you. And sometimes it's understandable. A guy who's 64 feels like if he puts down 59, he'll get more women interested in him. And, that's understandable. I still personally don't like it, but I can see where they're coming from. It's very hard to meet people in our society now. We just don't have the social networks. So I find that the online dating, a lot of which is free, is really probably your best option. I've been to singles events where it feels like these people are part of the singles group, so they have people to play with, not so much to find people to date. And that's cool. That's great.
Right. I think in finding a good partner, you want someone where there's chemistry, but you want a connection on all the other levels. And now, interestingly enough, I remember when I used to look at ads just for fun, like if you've ever looked on Craigslist. Craigslist, I'm not keen on Craigslist. Jeff is shaking his head here in the studio. It's so wacky. It's basically pornography. And you'll see people posting their private parts, or
everything.
Yeah, or you have the guys that are looking for their sugar babies, and they want that father-daughter, and conversely, you'll see the young men looking for the cougars. Yeah. And I'll just tell you real quick, when that brief time between getting divorced and now being with someone for a long time, in that short time period, I actually online had a 28-year-old guy that was hitting on me. I was 48 at the time, I think, 47 or 48. And he wanted to meet me so bad. And I'm going, I could be your mother. And I couldn't, I can't see that much, maybe 10 years either way. You're in the same generation.
10 years is about right. Maybe anywhere from 5 to 10 years. That's me personally. Everybody's very, very different. But I think one thing we can all agree on is, the simple lifestyle choices. If you love going to the gym, if you're a hiker, if you're really, you love to sit and watch television, in the afternoons, this is your idea of relaxation, find somebody that you're compatible with there. It's wonderful to find someone that matches your intellectual, too. I feel like there's 3 parts. There's the spiritual, the intellectual, and the physical. Most of us can make things work with the physical. The intellectual is easier to manage. You can tell if you're using words that are too big, or if you just can't. I've been told that. Or if you just can't figure out where the person's coming from, you don't have an intellectual match. The spiritual match is more difficult. That's where are your values. Are you the kind of person that thinks it's okay to fudge a little bit, hedge a little bit on your taxes? Where do you stand with your values, your character? And that's another measure. The chemistry thing, that's key. That's key, because you need to be with someone that you feel stimulates you intellectually, that you have desire for, and that you're not, quote, settling. There's no comfort to settling.
No, I agree. And the intellectual, at least for me, was very important to have a partner who is high, who understands those big words, and can carry on a conversation. So I think that part of it is key. Also, you're right. And also, you were talking about the values. To me, it's the morality. Is that person lying? And let me just tell you, if I ever had to date again, I would want to run a background check. I'd want to run a psychological profile. I would be Googling that person to find out what bad things, so that I wouldn't waste my time if it was someone who was a con artist. Because, I've been with people who are con artists, and that's kind of scary.
There's a few out there.
Yeah.
But I would say that, 80-90% of the people that I've met, they're just regular, normal folks. Sometimes we don't agree on politics. I've dated fellows that had never tried Chinese food, and I'm a very cosmopolitan person. Sushi is like one of my favorite foods. So you have those type of lifestyle clashes. I enjoy going to the gym. I've met people that want to hike all over the place. I'm like, hiking, can't we just go, crush the machines for a while and lift some weights? I don't want to be out in 100-degree heat. It's Phoenix.
Right.
Even though it's beautiful to be out there. But I think there's a lot to be said for some of the websites. I'm trying to think what it's called. I believe it's OkCupid has a fantastic list of questions that you answer. Everything from how soon do you think it's appropriate to have sex? First date, fourth date, not until I'm ready. How do you feel about introducing your children to someone that you're dating? Would you do it right away? Would you wait a few months? Would you wait until, even longer? I think a lot of that depends on the age of the kids.
Right.
But even my kids are in college now, and I don't want them to think I have a revolving door, that I'm just, out there randomly dating people, and, but it's because it's more than they ever want to know about Mom.
Right. And also they're learning their values from the example that you set.
Right. I think the main thing is that it's so easy to give up. You get frustrated, but you have to realize that there's someone out there, and you just need to be really patient, stay true to yourself, and enjoy it. Try to enjoy as much as you can. Figure, okay, I met this person. They turned out to have some really bizarre ideas and be woefully uninformed on many things, but yet they're a contributing member of society. They have a lot to offer. I've met people that literally scared me. That's never a comfortable feeling.
Yep, I've had that too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's
the
why
stalkers.
Well, not so much stalkers. Like, I never let them know where I live. I don't give them my address. Sometimes I don't even give them my last name until I've seen them 2 or 3 times, because I'm kind of like that.
Yeah, I think that's a wise choice. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining me. You've given some great advice. It was fun to talk to you, and I'll have you back on again.
All right. Thanks, Laurie.
Thanks, Mary. You too.
Our highly competitive and hectic world is fraught with dishonesty and challenges. Critical decisions must be made on a daily basis with accuracy when substantial assets are at risk. When you are confronted with a decision point involving opportunity and risk, consult with Sharpline Investigations, statewide experts in due diligence, investigations, and litigation support. Sharpline's professionals work with clients to conduct interviews, deep background investigations, and develop facts and intelligence related to litigation. When circumstances require confidential and expert fact-finding, turn to Sharpline Investigations, the statewide leaders in investigations and risk mitigation. Visit sharplineinvestigations.com or call 855-394-0042.
Are you looking for an affordable way to advertise to thousands of consumers nationally? If you own a business and didn't think you could afford radio advertising, you need to call me, Laurie Zoock, host of the nationally syndicated radio show, The World of Laurie Zoock. My show reaches thousands of people on 29 AM and FM stations nationwide, as well as through the internet. Additionally, your commercials will also be heard on my podcasts and throughout social media sites. Don't wait another minute. Call me at 813-777-4908. 813-777-4908, and let me bring your message to the nation and help you gain more exposure.
Welcome back to the show. Those of you in Radioland who have listened to me speak before know that I'm an animal advocate, and the one thing that I truly despise are people who abuse animals. And I have with me special guest Lisa Alford. She's also an animal advocate. And I want to talk a little bit, Lisa, about Michael Vick. Now, Michael Vick, I'm not a football fan. I know he was just hired by the Steelers. So there's been an outcry through social media, whether or not he served his time or, now he's free to go back and be signed and get $5 million to be a football person. But on social media, I actually want to read you something that was on Facebook. There's a picture of a fellow named Quantus Phillips, and I think he was also arrested or in trouble at the time. And it says, "This is your role model," and it shows a photo of one of the dogs. And here's what it says. "As that dog lay on the ground, fighting for air, Quantus Phillips grabbed its front legs, and Michael Vick grabbed its back legs. They swung the dog over their head like a jump rope, then slammed it to the ground. The first impact didn't kill it, so Phillips and Vick slammed it again. The two men kept at it, alternating back and forth, pounding the creature against the ground, until at last the little red dog was dead." Now, this was posted by the International Society Against Vick Endorsements, which is a Facebook group. And so what do you think about Michael Vick? Or, when we talk about it, really, he's representative of all animal abusers, right?
Right, he is. And, I think besides how horrible the abuse was and how horrible dog fighting is, I think what people need to be reminded of also is the connection between animal abusers who then go on to commit crimes against people. When you have just such an utter disrespect for life, it projects into other aspects and other relationships. So if Michael Vick had been convicted of a crime against a person, I just wonder if we would be so lenient and accepting and willing to, have him playing professional football and ending up being a role model because of that position to people and kids across the country. I just think we can't downplay the seriousness of the animal cruelty.
Right, and I agree with you. There was also another, when I read through the Facebook posts, I'm on all the animal activist lists. There was a reporter who someone filmed him, the reporter, actually talking to Michael Vick because he's been saying, "I'm really sorry for what I did. I did all these terrible things." But when this reporter tried to talk to Michael Vick, because the reporter had actually adopted one of the pit bulls that was rescued,
wow.
Michael Vick just kept blowing him off and giving him dirty looks. He said, "Hey, I want to talk to you, Michael Vick. You're saying you're sorry, and I actually rescued one of your dogs," and he just kept getting blown off. So it leads me to my not favorite topic, which is psychopaths and sociopaths. People who, it's people who have no remorse. There's no soul. There's no feeling. And clearly, in some way, I know what Jeff would say, what he doesn't have, but he's not a real man. Something must have happened to Michael Vick to make him so insecure that the only way he could make himself feel good is to do something like this. And I think you're right.
To hurt those who are less, who are not who are defenseless against him. It probably makes him feel better. I don't know. I mean, obviously, I don't know the man, but just to attack something that cannot defend itself, it's just
pathetic.
It's horrible.
Yeah,
it's pathetic.
It's pathetic.
It really is.
He actually there was a book written about Michael Vick's dogs. I believe it was called The Lost Dogs by an author named Jim Garant. And I read the book probably a year or so ago, and then I passed it on to a friend that was involved with pit bull rescue. Yeah. But it talked about how the dogs that did survive, the majority of them were actually placed into foster care and then ultimately were adopted. And do you know that not one of those dogs was aggressive? So, here you have all these fighting pit bulls. They were forced to fight for their lives. But in reality, it also reflected on the country because in a lot of cities and states, you have pit bull bans. And so here's Michael Vick doing this, making pit bulls look bad, when in reality it's Michael Vick who's bad, yet he gets a $5 million contract with the Steelers. And now if you want to help rescue a pit bull, people's perception is, oh, my God, those are fighting dogs. And in reality, they're not, right? Or they're friendly dogs.
Right. They, pit bulls in general love people. They are quite able to live with other dogs. These are not not dogs that are so bred that they are going to attack anything and everything they come across. Back in, I believe it was the early 1900s, they were actually called the nanny dogs because they were used kind of like a nanny. They would hang out with a family's children and, protect those children and just watch over those children. So they're actually wonderful dogs who, simply because of the power behind their jaws, have been used by criminals for dog fighting purposes. And it's a complete and utter nightmare. And dog fighting doesn't just impact the pit bulls who are used for the fighting. People who are into dog fighting, they are grabbing animals of any type that are used as bait dogs or bait cats. And you can go on the internet and Google images, and it's animals with their muzzles taped shut that are tossed in to be used as bait to get these dogs trained to rip and kill and be vicious in the ring.
You're right, and I'm going to jump in here for a second because one of the things I'm against is Craigslist Pets. That's a whole other topic for me. Yep. Yeah. And I have tried many times to get a hold of Jim Buckmaster, who is in charge of Craigslist, is the CEO, never responds to anything. If you look on his website, takes no blame for any of the things that have happened. But Craigslist Pets, there are people who post their pets for free, thinking they're trying to save it from the shelter and get it a good home. And what happens, I think, a lot of times is you've got these people that want the animals for the bait dogs. Oh, I'll come get your dog. I'm going to give it a great home. And then look what happens, right?
And they know what to say. The people who shop Craigslist and similar sites or newspapers or whatever for the free animals, they know the stories to tell the owners, to tug at their hearts, to tell them that they're going to give them this absolutely wonderful home. And you can't assume that it's some shady guy going to come knock on your door, and you're going to know right away it's not going to be a good home. Couples do this together. Women do this. You honestly, I hate to say you can't trust anyone, but you have to be so incredibly careful. People who are needing to rehome their pets need to be charging a rehoming fee because the people shopping for bait dogs and such aren't going to want to pay fees. And you need to do your research. You need to go check out the home where your dog or cat or whatever is going to be living. You need to do vet checks and such. You need to be incredibly careful. And I actually kind of do this off and on, and it's not enough to make a difference, but I've actually replied to Craigslist posts and about free animals and just told people that they need to be careful. They need to be charging an adoption fee, that this is where dog fighters find their bait dogs and such. And I've had some people thank me very much because they weren't aware. So I think it's a matter of educating the public, as well as educating the public what other options are out there if they really and truly need to rehome their animals. Telling them what rescues are in the area, that sort of thing. So it's such a huge, complicated matter, but there's just really cruel people out there, and you can't.
Well, you know what I'd like to do with all those cruel people, except I couldn't say it on the air. You know, I don't know. I kind of believe in an eye for an eye, and if you're going to do this kind of stuff to an innocent animal for your own pleasure, just like you've got the trophy hunters doing what they do, it makes to me, I sit here and go, do these people have a soul? What is so wrong in their mind and in their brain that they can do something like that? And then the perception is Michael Vick is a hero. He's got, you know, tons of fans. He's back in business. He really had no remorse. And there are people say, hey, he was punished, you know, if he went to jail. Did he really do anything to promote anything for the animals? No. Do you think he really changed? I don't think so. And I think that's a sad role model for young people, you know, especially maybe there are guys who want to become football players and they go, well, Michael Vick did it, so it's okay for us, right?
Right. But, I mean, I think to a certain extent, and I don't know, I don't follow football, and just as a disclaimer, I don't know a lot about the NFL National Football League, just sort of what I see in the news. But it almost seems like the NFL, as long as a player is playing well, they are willing to overlook abuse, whether it's abuse of animals, domestic abuse. You know, they'll give the player a little slap on the wrist and a fine, which is usually, you know, pennies to them because they're making millions of dollars.
Right.
And they move on rather than requiring their players to, I don't know, be good people, to not beat up their wives, girlfriends, dogs. You know,
you hit it on.
We need to expect more.
You hit it right on the nutshell. I want to thank you so much for joining me, and I'm going to have you on again.
Okay.
All right, and we'll talk soon. And
sounds good.
Thanks, Lisa, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Our highly competitive and hectic world is fraught with dishonesty and challenges. Critical decisions must be made on a daily basis with accuracy when substantial assets are at risk. When you are confronted with a decision point involving opportunity and risk, consult with Sharpline Investigations, statewide experts in due diligence, investigations, and litigation support. Sharpline's professionals work with clients to conduct interviews, deep background investigations, and develop facts and intelligence related to litigation. When circumstances require confidential and expert fact-finding, turn to Sharpline Investigations, the statewide leaders in investigations and risk mitigation. Visit sharplineinvestigations.com or call 855-394-0042.
Do you suffer from back, neck, or body pain? Do you suffer from migraines or have jaw or face pain? Has conventional medicine failed you? Were you injured or in an accident? Call chiropractic physician Dr. Dan Madock at 813-935-1664. Dr. Dan has helped thousands of patients gain relief for more than 30 years. Dr. Dan is caring, gentle, and takes his time with each patient. He's also a past president of the International Craniopathic Society, a special certification of only 300 chiropractors worldwide. Dr. Dan helps patients from the neck up and the neck down. Dr. Dan accepts most insurance plans. Don't continue to live in pain. Call 813-935-1664 today. That's 813-935-1664 and get on track to better health.
And welcome back to the world of Laurie Zoock. I've got a special guest with me today. Her name is Kathleen Russell, and she's from the Center for Judicial Excellence. And I find her topic so interesting, I'm actually going to let her do her own little intro here and talk about, Kathleen, what is the Center for Judicial Excellence?
Sure, Laurie. Well, it's great to be with you today. The Center for Judicial Excellence is a nonprofit advocacy organization that is working to educate the public and expose serious problems in the family court system across America. And we're particularly concerned that children are being harmed and that there's no accountability for any of the problems that go on in family court. And the judges and the court appointees and others are essentially immune from any liability when the mistakes are made. And we're seeing children die and be put in harm's way. And these are mostly in divorce cases. So affecting a lot of people.
Okay, now you're in only the state of California?
Well, we're based here in California, but we're a small organization, but we deal with problems all over the U.S. and beyond. There is a real lack of organizations that are doing this kind of work and focused on this population. And if you talk to any of the parents that are going through divorce and in this crazy world where the laws are often not even followed, there aren't many organizations that are serving this population of people going through divorce.
Right, and it's interesting, you talk about justice. I mean, justice to me is doing the right thing, the moral thing, and yet that system does seem to be broken. Can you maybe give me an example? You don't have to give any names, but give me an example of maybe a case where something went terribly wrong.
Sure, Laurie. I mean, I can give you an example that the cases follow a certain pattern, and it's really quite upsetting, and that's why we love to talk to people on the radio and anywhere we can so that parents are forewarned, particularly if you're getting a divorce because you found out that your child is being sexually abused by the other parent, which is quite frequently what causes a divorce, or if you're fleeing a domestic violence situation. In those cases, you go into court, you've got lots of medical evidence, police reports, eyewitness accounts, and you go into court thinking this is a slam dunk, I'm going to present all my evidence, and my kids will be protected. Well, you go into court, and your lawyer, if you have enough money to afford a lawyer, advises you that if you mention child abuse or domestic violence, you may have the tables turned on you, and more often than not, we see children being placed with the dangerous parent who's got multiple DUIs, who's got a history of domestic violence. Sometimes even registered sex offenders are getting custody of their children, and they're being taken, the contact with the child is being taken away from the safe parent. So the courts essentially punish parents who are trying to protect their children from harm.
Okay,
because of this junk science, which the courts use all over the country, this bogus theory called parental alienation, which suggests that any time child abuse or violence is raised in a divorce case, then it must be a lie, it must be a fabrication, and then the courts blame it on the parent who's trying to protect their child.
So in essence, it's twisted and it backfires. What you're trying to do good, but the court system is twisting it, and the parental alienation. You're not permitting the child to be with the one who is the okay. And that's so far out there. I sit here and go, what the heck is really what the heck is wrong with this country and these judges? Now, on your site, I saw something about there was a complaint filed against a family law judge for evidence tampering.
Right, yes, Judge Beverly Wood in Marin County. And we have lots of reports where we hear that the transcripts are altered by the courts if they're even available to litigants. Sometimes, like in California, they've stopped even giving people court reporters unless you can pay for it, which the Commission on Judicial Performance here said was a grave injustice, that you can't file an appeal in your case if you lose custody in your divorce. You can't even file an appeal if you don't have transcripts. So the court system will say, oh, our funding is being taken away and we can't do as much with so little funding. But these particular cases in divorce court, they get churned is the word that a lot of lawyers will use. And believe me, I talk to parents who've been trying to get divorced for sometimes 5 or 15 years, and the courts will churn their case and bring them back again and again. And if you're divorcing someone who has a personality disorder or mental illness, it seems as though the courts kind of collude with that person, and you walk in there thinking you're going to have a sane and logical process, and routinely lies are, stated as fact, hearsay is accepted, and a lot of the protections that exist even in criminal court for criminals don't apply in family court. So if you don't have money for an attorney and your ex does, there's laws that say that you should have an attorney that he would pay for or she would pay for, but oftentimes that doesn't happen. So you have a mother fleeing domestic violence who has to put on a trial by herself against the best attorney that money can buy. And I've seen that happen here in Marin County with an African immigrant mother who didn't know the first thing about divorce court, having to put on a trial to try to protect her child and have some sort of visitation against the chair of the family law section of the local bar association. So it's a very uneven playing field, and it's a lot about who has more money and who hires the attorney who's, in better standing with the judges or has contributed to the judge's campaign. And a lot of times those, relationships are not disclosed, and there's some real conflicts of interest.
And it seems like that everywhere. I do personally know a lot of attorneys, and I know a lot of attorneys. They're in it for some of them are in it for the billable hours. There are a lot of good attorneys, but some of it are in it for how much money they can get by continuing, in this case, like to bill the parents. But what I really find disturbing from the good, honest attorneys I know is they'll tell me, if there's a case up, they want to know what judge it is. Well, why do they want to know what judge it is? Because they know whether the judge is, for the plaintiff or for the defendant, because they seem to lean a different way. And I thought you're supposed to be unbiased, and that's where I find it very disturbing. Now, with your center, you mentioned to me when we spoke on the phone a couple of weeks ago that kids get the opportunity to actually speak out, correct?
Yes, our organization worked to pass a law. I believe it's the first of its kind in the country in California that allows children 14 and older to have a voice in family court, because so often the children are treated like property to be divided, like the house and the car and the pets. And we believe that children should have a voice, and so the court is required to allow them to speak about their wishes when it comes to custody. And we've found that helps in some cases. It's helped protect children. But again, if the judges are being trained to disbelieve abuse allegations, which is in essence what we've heard is happening, and we know from some retired judges that they're being taught to disbelieve allegations of abuse as just some fabrication by a vindictive parent, when the research shows even with child sex abuse, 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys is going to be molested at some point before they're 18. So the courts are living in the dark ages. They're supposed to protect the best interests of the child. That's what it says in most states in the law. And yet what we're finding is it is not about the best interests of the children, and oftentimes the children are, we've estimated with a national organization we work with, over 58,000 children a year in America are being court-ordered to visit or live with the parent that they've identified as harming them, like beating them, raping them, or molesting them.
Oh, my God. See, I could actually understand if a parent wanted to take their child and flee to another country, even if it was illegal, because you'd be protecting that child from the abuser. But
right. Well, that's what we find in a lot of these cases. People just see the headlines and think, oh, how terrible that she or he has left the country. Well, imagine if you're going to all the authorities, the police, the DA, the courts, and nobody's protecting your child. A lot of parents feel helpless, and that's what they resort to.
Now, Kathleen, do the parents actually call you themselves when they've had a problem in court?
They often do, or they email us, and we have, most often people are looking for pro bono attorneys, which we can't provide. We're not attorneys ourselves. We're focused more on fixing the system and getting the media to shine a spotlight on the problem, because until there's public awareness, as we saw with the Catholic Church pre-scandal, until there's real public awareness, you're not going to see political will for change to fix the system and to protect children. And we really want parents to be warned that it's not a logical, safe place. And one of the things I caution parents, although oftentimes they get to our organization when things have already gone badly for them for a year or more in their case, but if at all possible, to avoid going to family court for your divorce, you can actually mediate privately and avoid the court system altogether. Now, if you're divorcing someone who's a domestic violence batterer or has mental health problems, that's not always an option. But there are ways to avoid court, and it's like avoiding getting on a hamster wheel is how I like to describe it.
I mean, it sounds more like you're better off avoiding court entirely, because if the system is now so biased and you've got judges that, you have to complain or file tampering, with evidence charges, it sounds like realistically both parents would be better avoiding court entirely, because it sounds like it's such a circus at this point. You don't know which way it's going to go. Whatever happened to the truth?
That's right. And I would also recommend for those couples that have resources to hire an attorney that you be very careful about which attorney you hire, because a lot of times the attorneys all know each other and they know the judge, and it's, okay, here come the next Jane and Joe Schmo, and how you have to list your assets so they see how much money you have, and they can tap your resources for, depending on the age of your child, for 10 or 15 years. And a lot of times they'll churn the case to, foment the conflict between you and not work to resolve things. Because if you two walk away and you're amenable and you've got your parenting plan in place and everyone's happy, then nobody makes any money off of you.
Right, and it's all come down to the money.
So it's really sad that, it's very much it's a cottage industry. And one of the other things I would recommend, a lot of times people go into court and they get told by the judge you have to hire a custody evaluator, and their lawyer throws out a name and they agree to it and they haven't done their homework. A lot of times you can Google people's names. If the judge or your opposing attorney says, we want, Dr. Miller to perform a custody evaluation, these people can charge up to $80,000, and they write a report to the judge, which is often rubber stamped, which says which parent should get custody or how much. And a lot of these evaluators, if they've harmed other families, you can Google their name and see that there's, websites sometimes devoted to avoiding these people. A lot of times you're in court, things are happening quickly, and you think you're supposed to agree to things, and that's when you can get into some real trouble. So we always advise people to know what your rights are going in, know that they might not be adhered to or protected, but slow things down if you're able to. Obviously, if your children are being harmed, you don't want to slow things down too much.
Right. You made some good points. I think the due diligence is one, is that you have to know who you're hiring. And if your attorney recommends somebody, they may be, who knows, there could be kickbacks on the back end on a lot of this stuff. And I think that's unfortunately where the person that's involved in this has to do some due diligence. Kathleen, I want to thank you very much for being on the show. What's your contact information in case anyone wants to get a hold of you?
Sure. People can check out our website at www.centerforjudicialexcellence.org, and our number is 415-444-6556, and you can always leave a message, and we will get back to you. And we can also connect you to other parents in your community if we've heard from them, because sometimes it helps to have a friend or somebody in the courtroom that knows what you're going through.
Great. Thank you again so much for joining me. What you explained, I think, explained it really well, and I'd like to have you back on a future show. Thanks again.
Thank you, Laurie. Love to do it.
Thanks, Kathleen.
Take care.
All right, and we'll be back in just a moment. And welcome back. You're in my world, the world of Laurie Zoock. And I have on the phone with me Dr. Dan Madock. He is a chiropractor in Temple Terrace. Welcome to the show, Dr. Dan.
Thank you, Laurie. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks. I'm kind of making you a regular here because you have such great topics I like to talk about. And recently you entered into part of a project called the Patriot Project, which has to do with chiropractic care for veterans. So can you expand on that topic quite a bit?
Well, I'll do my best.
Okay.
I was attending my relicensure seminar at the world's largest chiropractic organization meeting, the Florida Chiropractic Association event in Orlando, Florida. And there they had a presentation by Shiloh Harris. And Shiloh Harris was injured. He was in the service in Afghanistan, and his Humvee hit IED, a landmine, which registered, or they figured it somewhere around equal to 700 pounds of TNT.
Wow.
Completely destroyed the Humvee.
And he survived.
Killed 3 of the people that were in the Humvee with him, and he survived, and he was burned severely all over his body and lost fingers and toes and things of that nature. He lost both of his ears. He came into the seminar, and he's a funny guy. It's just amazing how he's able to handle this.
Yeah, because most people probably wouldn't. I would think under those circumstances, most people would be the other way, very negative.
Oh, he gets up and talks about it and describes his injury and his recovery. And after he was recovered and learned how to walk again and learned all of his other functional capabilities and able to care for himself to some degree, he was rear-ended by a semi-tractor trailer.
Oh, gosh.
And had to go back through it and start all over. And so he comes in and he presents this wearing Vulcan Spock ears.
So he got a good laugh out of people.
Stick to his head with magnets. It was so funny, and he was so good, and they made this presentation. And the presentation is this, and I'm going to read it to you.
Okay.
In becoming a Patriot Project chiropractor, each participating doctor of chiropractic pledges to treat one Patriot Project qualified patient per week. We are offering these deserving men and women and families free services that are part of our state's scope of practice. It would not be consistent with the Patriot Project's mission to charge someone for some of our services, even if those services are covered by insurance. Patriot Project patients are never to be given a bill for service. Their sacrifice to our nation was their payment. Patriot Project patients should be afforded the same consultation, exams, documentation, and other services that are common with a typical patient. Individuals that are eligible for this care include all military personnel currently on active duty in their immediate family members, any veteran with a service-related disability, and Gold Star dependents, which means anyone who has lost a family member. The doctors of chiropractic associated with this project recognize the sacrifice of our soldiers and their families and consider it an honor to care for their needs.
Right. So now Jeff, I think, has a question. Do you have a question you want to ask him? Okay. All right. Well, so the doctors that join this, it's a voluntary type of situation. In other words, you volunteer, and in essence, you treat one military person per week, and there's no charge whatsoever.
That's correct.
Okay. And how do you as a doctor determine, or does the Patriot Project actually send you somebody?
They go to the website, www.patriotproject.org.
Okay. And now, have you actually started doing this yet with military personnel, or you've just joined?
I just joined within the last week, and apparently I'm one of 2 chiropractors in Hillsborough County that are participating.
Oh, okay, and I would think that a lot more. Now, is the Patriot Project, is it very new? Did it just roll out?
That was the first that I had heard of it. If you go to the website, you can get all of that information. They're a national organization. You can click on donation. You can spread the word. You can find an event. You can connect.
Okay.
There's all kinds of information here. New research, chiropractic proves more effective than standard medical care in the military. So there's research projects, Patriot Projects, welcome Colonel Bruce, Snake 6, Crandall to board.
All right, so it sounds...
Veterans are not being served by the Veterans Administration.
Now, I hear that all the time because I know veterans who have complained about the VA and not being able to get help. So this sounds like it's a really good idea, and hopefully you'll be able to get more chiropractors that will participate in this to be able to help the veterans, because they served their country, they gave their lives. This guy gave, he's alive, but he definitely lost a lot as far as body parts. So I think the fact that he took something that was so negative and turned it into a positive, it helps a lot of people, right?
Oh, it's amazing what he's doing. And like I said, the veterans are being underserved by the Veterans Administration. We have tried as chiropractic organizations for years to get chiropractors on bases, to get chiropractors in VA hospitals. They have allowed a token few just to shut people up.
Well,
but there should be a chiropractor on every military base. VA TRICARE should be covering chiropractic. TRICARE doesn't cover chiropractic, so they have no coverage to go to a chiropractor for treatment. Recent research has shown that chiropractic, if you go to a chiropractor, you're likely to have surgery about 1.5% of the time if you go to a chiropractor first. If you go to a medical doctor, your chances for having back surgery are 43%.
Big difference, right? Right. I want to thank you so much, and I know people can also, they can go to the Google, actually the Patriot Project, and it'll pop up. And if you have a chiropractor that's interested in participating that can help a veteran, I think that's a great thing. So thanks very much for joining me, Dr. Dan.
Thank you, Laurie. Appreciate it.
Great. Thank you. And I'll see you all next week on The World of Laurie Zoock. That's a wrap. Hi, this is Laurie Zoock, radio host from The World of Laurie Zoock. I was so nervous about getting tattooed, but after doing my due diligence and checking out companies and artists, I had my tattoos done by Justin Dubois of Suncoast Tattoos. He is knowledgeable and artistic, and he gave me a beautiful tattoo, and he put me at ease before, during, and after the process. I just love my new tattoo. Go get your tattoo at Suncoast Tattoos. Call them at 727-575-7935 today. That's 727-575-7935. Or go to suncoasttattoos.net.
Are you looking for an affordable way to advertise to thousands of consumers nationally? If you own a business and didn't think you could afford radio advertising, you need to call me, Laurie Zoock, host of the nationally syndicated radio show, The World of Laurie Zoock. My show reaches thousands of people on 29 AM and FM stations nationwide, as well as through the internet. Additionally, your commercials will also be heard on my podcasts and throughout social media sites. Don't wait another minute. Call me at 813-777-4908.
Imus in the morning.
We continue here on the Imus in the morning program, dealing with a developing situation this morning. The I-Man has gone to the bathroom, and he will be making his return, we think, here in just a moment. Let's go live to our bathroom cab.
No. What did you say when I was away?
You're in the bathroom. That's all.
What do we have to provide people with all these details?
I think people are interested. You know, people that are longtime listeners might be worried. They hear my voice when we come back from break. You never know what might have happened.
Yeah, maybe I died, right?
Exactly, right. Yeah. So just try to reassure the audience.
What's so funny, Lou?
Imagine somebody opening that bathroom door and finding you just dead in there. Oh, my God.
All Elvis'd out.
You bastards. One of these days, I will die. Then what are you going to do?
That would be tragic.
Son of a...
Look for a job.
Look for a job? Is that what you said?
What else? File for unemployment.
Catch Imus in the morning, right here
weird.
On the stations of the Tan Talk Network.
No paper in here at all. What is... Too much espresso.